Right, so again, we don't have any numbers out of Alberta coming out of Sunday. We'll have some later today or for the video tomorrow. As far as the numbers out of the states go, it is very good news. Both the daily deaths and the daily cases are both down over the last couple days, especially yesterday, so that's good news. I mean, the deaths was only 467 yesterday, so that's down by a pretty good amount. That is good news, and I think it's very clear that then again the numbers are going to have to trend down again at some point. But the kind of the wrench that's being thrown into things is that these areas continue to increase testing. But I do think that, I mean, I think I'm still confident in the prediction that um, the cases will trend down over the next couple months, and at least within the next month, I think. And the media will claim, oh, it's because of the whole mandatory mask garbage, but yet they won't actually provide any conclusive evidence of that. For the simple reason that, Ontario's had it for like a month now. Their cases are still pretty steady. You've had most, I think the entire province of Quebec has it, if not the big cities, and that their numbers haven't had a clear trend down. You have some states that have had it going back to like early June that haven't trended down again. So the idea of this whole mass garbage makes a difference is absolutely insane. Um, Edmonton and Calgary officially have it now, and obviously I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on that. But again, the thing that really bothers me is that no one, at least on the pro mask side, is pointing to an example that actually proves that it works. Like I say, it's going to be the same thing as the whole lockdown thing, is that at least in Alberta and most of the world, it took like a good 6 weeks ish, for the numbers to trend down. And again, if the lockdown had an effect, it should have happened within 2 or 3 weeks again. So it's going to be a similar situation. It's going to be a similar situation, and everyone's going to be like, oh, it's because of the masks. When in reality, it's not because of the mask. It's because they're going to trend down at some point, no matter what you do. And again, I think that the whole testing may throw a wrench into that, but that's the only thing that I could see throwing a wrench into that. So anyway, the big thing I wanted to talk about yesterday was these doctors. I think this was a few days ago, but actually it was yesterday I seen this, and it was Simone Gold here. I mean, there was a handful of them. There was some other ones that went very viral as well, but um, she says, after our press conference, I was defamed by the media, censored by social media companies, terminated from employment, and viciously attacked, all for advocating for the right of prescriptions for physicians to prescribe what they believe is best for their patients. Now, again, it really doesn't matter where you stand on this issue. It makes no sense to not give doctors the ability to prescribe hydroxychloroquine if they want, because there's endless amounts of evidence that it is a safe drug. I mean, I know it's a safe drug. I've taken it personally. Um, and again, with next to no side effects, none of that kind of stuff. And again, so the idea that you shouldn't be able to let doctors prescribe this is insane. Now, if you want to say, oh well, they don't want to be promoting it in mass, okay, that's fine. But the idea that it should be banned like it is in Canada, I believe, is just insane. Like, it's just insane. And that's the crazy thing too. Not only that, why are social media companies just determining what is considered effective medical treatment and whatnot? Like, these social media companies are literally saying we know more than literal doctors do. Again, and they're the same kind of people that, when you question the lockdown, they'll tell you, oh, you're not an epidemiologist. Who cares what you think? Again, and that, I mean, that's a terrible argument too, for the fact that epidemiologists, are they trained in infectious diseases? Yeah, absolutely, they're experts, but they're not trained in economic ramifications of any of the policies they're advocating for. They're not trained in any of that kind of stuff. So the idea that we should have epidemiologists deciding absolutely everything makes no sense. The idea that we should have doctors deciding absolutely everything makes no sense. Because again, because these people have demonstrated rather clearly that they're perfectly fine with completely ignoring any negative ramifications on the economy, um, and on people's well-being, just to slow the spread by 5%. Like that's what these people are willing to do. So again, I just wanted to point that out. But again, um, I think one of the big things here too is that hydroxychloroquine is a very cheap drug, and these big pharma companies won't be able to make much, if any, money off it. I mean, they'll make a little bit, but not nearly as much as a vaccine. Again, this is another reason why I can't stand the left, is that the left always complains about corporate greed, and rightfully so to an extent, but they completely ignore and completely neglect and could care less about clear and obvious corporate greed here. I mean, first of all, with the whole vaccine thing, that some of these vaccine companies are literally going to profit, tens of billions, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars off a vaccine. Um, Not only that, people like Bill Gates say they're going to make a ton of money too. So, um, yeah, that's again another reason why I just don't take the left seriously, is that they don't care about corporate greed. They only care about corporate greed when they perceive it to not benefit them. Um, Even though corporate greed doesn't benefit the vast majority of people, no matter who's doing it. So anyway, and again, this is another thing to kind of piggyback off that, and this is from Scott Adams, and he says, "Has anyone ever seen a story of someone who got the virus, got early treatment with the combo of HCQ, zinc, and azithromycin, and died anyway?" Again, if the anti-HCQ people were so right, then they would be coming up with stories and finding stories like this, but they haven't. I haven't seen one story of it. They constantly just say, "Oh, it's unproven, it's unsafe," even though by definition it isn't. Is it massively proven to help with the virus? Maybe you could argue that, but you cannot argue that it's unsafe, because it's been demonstrated for decades that it is. Um, and there is endless amounts of anecdotal reports of it helping. And again, are they anecdotal? Yes, but is there a massive amount? Yeah. So again, it should be something that doctors should be able to prescribe. And if it doesn't do anything, it doesn't do anything. Like, who cares? I don't understand. But again, the reality is that the big pharma basically can't make a bunch of money off it, so they're not going to promote it. And if you look at the biggest donors and people that pay the mainstream media's bills, it's these big pharma companies. So again, of course they're not going to promote it. Again, like people watching CBC and thinking, "Oh, they told me HCQ doesn't work, therefore I'm going to believe." Like, how stupid can you be? They literally have a massive financial incentive to not report the truth on it. So why in the world would you believe them? That's literally the definition of a conflict of interest. I really don't get it. Um, Again, so a different story here is from Dave Rubin, and he links to a tweet saying, "Did Oberlin Professor J. Garcia Forrest just cross a line here into advocating for political violence?" And Dave Rubin says, um, "She's just saying what most progressives, including their political leaders, believe. Political violence is okay as long as it achieves their goals." Now, again, this is something I've been talking about for a long time, and a lot of people are ignoring it because, again, the reason why Black Lives Matter and all, like, bringing up all this stuff with sports, the reason why they get away with what they do is that when you think about the average person, more apolitical, they're not super political, who do they side with in one of these battles, or whatever fights, whatever you want to call it? Well, they side with the group that, number one, is more confident, regardless of whether or not they're right. And number two, the group that's more willing to use violence to get their way. And which group is that? It's overwhelmingly BLM and these leftists, the Antifa types, which is exactly why the mainstream media has been constantly defending them, which is exactly why the vast majority of random people just support these people, because again, people on the right are naturally more skeptical. You have to be. I mean, anybody who isn't skeptical of BLM and Antifa, I don't know what planet you're living on. But um, and again, the average person looking at it from the outside sees, hey, these people they're not really all that confident. This other group's super confident, and not only that, they're threatening to come to my house, literally in a lot of cases, if I don't tout the party line. So again, of course, the average person is going to side with these people, and they know that it's effective. Now, they can't be super wide out in the open about it, because if they're super out in the open about it, like if Antifa is literally going around killing people, then it makes it rather obvious. Even though they have, I mean, Black Lives Matters killed people, but um, if it's too out in the open, then it's kind of obvious to people. Like the average person is going to catch on, but they always, and that's the other reason why the mainstream media always insists on, oh, they're peaceful protesters and all this kind of stuff, but in reality they're not. Again, so that's just something to point out too. That I mean, it's very scary too. It's very scary too for anybody out there who's into politics and anything. Like you need to be talking about this kind of stuff, because we have a massive group of people that are literally saying we think violence is good as long as it helps us politically. Again, so you need to speak up about it. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, again, speaking of censorship, is um, from Nikki Haley here, and she says, "What does this say when Twitter censors Donald Trump more than the Ayatollah? Social media needs to give conservatives the same rights as they give terrorist leaders." Now, again, Trump has had many tweets censored. I mean, Twitter is openly biased against conservatives. And again, that's not conspiracy theory. They literally admitted on camera multiple times. So again, let's not pretend that it's a conspiracy theory. No, it couldn't be any more true. There couldn't be any more evidence to back it up. So um, again, this isn't just censoring Muslim guy because we're racist or any of that garbage that the left always brings up. No, this is people literally advocating for terrorism. This tells you where Twitter is at, and this tells you where the average leftist is at too. That they are more offended by um, literal terrorists than they are by a run-of-the-mill conservative. And Trump, like I say, Trump, I've said this a million times, but there's still so many people to believe it. Trump is not far right. And again, for the simple reason, too, that Trump has many views that would have been considered too far to the left for the average conservative as recently as 10 to 20 years ago. I mean, if you'd have said, yeah, 20 years from, or if you'd asked someone 15 years ago, there's going to be a president that is pro-gay marriage and he's a Republican, most people probably would have said, yeah, you're lying. If you had said, yeah, there's a president that's very anti-war, he's trying to bring the troops home, and he's a Republican, people would have said, "Yeah, you're crazy," especially considering both of those things. But again, Trump supports both those policies. So again, Trump is not far right by any stretch of the imagination. So that's just the one thing I wanted to point out. And again, it's just insane that we're in a world to where we justify this kind of stuff, and things are only going to get worse before they get better. So anyway, I'm gonna leave the video there. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Make sure you check out the links in the description. You follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more.